I'm Becky, and I help women who are done with diets, done with the cycles, done with starting again every Monday, and finally sort out their relationship with food and their body for good. And that's not through another plan or not through the scales or missing out on actually living, but it's by breaking down diet culture's hold and getting to the real stuff underneath. Now, today's guest is someone I stumbled across through a shared rage, like about femicide, which is honestly one of my favourite ways to meet people when we have this like connection over certain views and interests. So, Brónagh is with me today. She grew up in the Troubles in Northern Ireland and worked for Bernardo's and now works in film archives, like specifically using the role to do something that I think is genuinely radical, and that's making sure that women's stories are in the historical record, not as subjects, but as the ones like telling their own story. So she runs programs looking at how women have been represented or misrepresented in political and media coverage from the 1960s onwards, and she works with Muslim women's groups, LBG, I can't get the word like letters out, LGBTQIA communities and young women to make sure that their voices are preserved too. I wanted to have her on today because she basically is doing the the cultural side of things that everyone I like talk about, like self-objectification, the internalized misogyny, the way women learn to shrink as well. So she's out here doing this stuff and getting it written down to, show the history. So, Brónagh, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thanks, Becky. Yeah, I'm delighted. I love stumbling across a fellow ragey.
Yes, I just get angry on social media, like, no, this isn't right. We need to. Actually, because I've connected to like a lot of people around this kind of work, and so much of women's history gets lost. Absolutely, and that's why I think what you're doing is incredible.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so thank you for coming on today. So I know, like I just discussed, that you grew up during the Troubles in Ireland, but how did that shape the way that you see power and whose voices get heard and whose don't?
I think growing up in a conflict society means that you're politically aware without even realizing it. And from a very young age, I think that's just how we were. And frankly, that was partly because it was a form of self protection
Yeah.
because of the potential of violence and um, that you had to, be very aware of where you were, who you were around, what you could talk about and not talk about. And so that kind of gives all of us here um, a kind of a self-awareness, which isn't necessarily always a positive thing. But I grew up in a town that at one point was the most bombed town in Europe.
Really? Wow.
And we were very, very fortunate, I have to say, in our family to not be directly touched by violence, but I know plenty of people who were, and it was kind of all around us. So, and the thing about that, and the thing about society driven by conflict, is that the conflict is driven by men. And the legacy of that, I think, is something that we are dealing with not very successfully. I mean, I think what you've seen in the last few weeks in Northern Ireland, we would expect that to happen on a regular basis. We see the same players doing it. We see the same gatekeepers all the time. We know that these things are planned and they're just kind of ready and poised to go. And they are, those actions are a direct result of the trauma of growing up in a society of conflict. And that is not to excuse it, but that is to say that if we don't deal with it and talk about it and bring other voices into the conversation, we're just going to keep going in this cycle for
Yeah.
good, and we're just going to be stuck in it. So there is an amazing woman. I don't know if you have heard of Bernadette McAlliskey.
Yeah.
So Bernadette Devlin was a nationalist. She was the youngest ever member of parliament, elected in the late 60s. At one point, she was thrown out of parliament for hitting hitting the mace carrier about the face because she was really cross with him. She's an amazing, amazing woman and still a huge advocate for women. And she has said, and I have been in conversations with her, she's incredible, that when the violence ended, it just went behind the front door. And that is what we are seeing in our culture and I believe in our society, and I believe that's what we see is this trauma doesn't go away if we don't deal with it. It just gets internalized. It goes behind the front door, and we see recently with this stuff. We've also seen what Women's Aid have been saying about what World Cup and the implications of your team losing, and the horrendous statement that the Reform MP made yesterday about if England keeps winning, basically women won't get hit, which
great.
I mean, that's the solution. Let's put it in the hands of 11 men across the world. But
Gosh.
so those conversations are necessary. They're very painful, but we have to have them, and we have to see other representation. So I'm hoping that what we do is a little bit of helping that to happen for women and young girls all over Northern Ireland.
I love that. Really, it's really powerful because, you're right. I think it's not talked about enough. It's I think for so many generations, it's been hush, don't talk about this stuff. Put it behind the closed doors, like you said. And now it's no, actually, we do need to speak. If we want change, we need to come forward and speak out, and make our voices heard, or make whoever's voices it needs to be heard. So yeah, thank you for that. But I know you said obviously you worked at Brónagh's as well, and then before moving into the film archive. What did that period open your eyes to about women and girls specifically?
I worked in a children's centre, so it was where families who had children taken into care could do work to try and get their children back, or to make their children in contact. And I have to say that I was fairly naive. I mean, I knew domestic violence and violence against women and girls was a thing. I think what it opened my eyes to is the absolute myth that this only applies to certain classes of people, and that it is driven by poverty, and that only poor people commit domestic violence. I mean, what a load of absolute nonsense! But there is such a classist attitude to it, and we would see all kinds of people, and and people who were, what we say, more well off or middle class or were appalled at finding themselves in these situations, and didn't understand how this could possibly happen to them. So I think that was a real eye opener for me, and also again the fact that it's generationally transient trauma, in the sense that it's trickling down, and so sad that what you would see is children repeating what they'd heard in the house from a very, very young age. And it just made me really aware that there's no time that is early enough to talk to children about these situations in an age appropriate way. It's completely possible to have those conversations. It's really necessary to have those conversations. So.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree. And what you said, I don't believe that a lot of people know how prevalent it is. My other half actually works in the court. So he works for the probation service, and every single day there's a DV case.
Yeah.
And that's in a small town in the West Country in the UK. And the way it gets covered up, or it's oh, it's not that bad, and it's no, it is. This is happening every single day, and it's not talked about enough, or it's just or we get told that not to talk about it, or we're being hysterical, or whatever it may be. We just don't I get on a rant about it.
Let's not do that.
But it's just I don't think it is. Yeah, it's not well. And because I get comments on my social media, especially when I talk about this kind of stuff, and people are it's usually men, oh, well, I don't, you're making stuff up, or it's not that prevalent. And it's just because you might not do it, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and you don't know how prevalent this is. If someone's said, my other half working in the court, every day, every week, there's numbers of cases, then there is an issue. But and you've seen it firsthand as well.
Yeah, and we need to encourage. We need to encourage men to talk about this in a different way as well. I mean, sadly, the grifters will monetize those feelings and exploit people for those feelings, and it's very easy then to get waylaid with what you're fed. And that's not to say that everybody's like that, but I think none of us can deny it, and men especially. But I understand this is difficult, and I see changes. Young people, amazing how they discuss this stuff. How young men talk about it and everything. I really have great hope for it. Maybe generationally, it's just that we shouldn't have to accept it, but I understand, it's more difficult. But yeah, it's not, it's everywhere. And you're only seeing, your other half is only seeing in the courts what actually gets there,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. That's only what gets there as well, which is the other side
Yeah,
of it. Because there's a lot that don't. There's a
yeah,
lot
of
that don't.
course. Yeah.
But yeah, what you said about the young kids is, I feel like there's two sides as well, because you've got the whole manosphere stuff, which is coming up, which does kind of support violence to women and girls, which is quite scary. But it's good that we've got this other split that are standing up against it. So hopefully that comes through more. But yeah, we don't want more manosphere stuff coming in.
No, no, that's frightening. That's so frightening.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I think the more it's talked about, the more normalized the conversations become, the better, basically.
Yeah, I totally agree. But let's go more into the archive work, because this is
Okay.
really interesting to me. So, like, for people that don't know what a film archive actually is or does, what does your like day to day look like, and how did you end up like using that role to centre women's stories?
Okay, well, a film archive, and I know archive, like you can smell the dust off the word, I totally get it. Um, but I think we're very fortunate. We deal only with moving image, and we are only online. So at the moment, we don't have a physical space, which is good in a way that we can reach a lot of people, who might not be able to get to a physical space for various reasons. But our film archive is specifically about moving image of Northern Ireland and Ulster before the existence of Northern Ireland, um, going back 120 years. So we have thousands and thousands of pieces of film of all kinds. So there might be documentaries or animation and children's programs, home movies, which, oh my God, are the most beautiful things in the world,
Oh,
home movies.
wow.
Um, and also we look after Ulster Television's archive collection from 1959 up to the present day. So it's vast. And what I do personally, when we have an amazing team, is I have a little cinema in my car, projector screen, speakers, and I travel all over Northern Ireland, rock up with my little cinema, and then show people whatever it is that they want to see. So it could be in a nursing home for lovely reminiscence. It could be in a women's group or a historical society. It might be themed. It might be, we could do fashion or industry or whatever. So I just do that all over. And now what we've done as well is identified the people who aren't in the archives, because the thing about an archive is if it doesn't keep changing and moving and adding to it, it stagnates and then it becomes something that's irrelevant to people. So we have found doing what we call contemporary collecting, that people have amazing things on their phones and don't think of them as being valuable, but they are. They are valuable, because if you make something yourself, that's the story of you. And
Yeah.
you will not see that in mainstream media, and you will not see that in curated pieces or whatever. So we asked people to give us what they had on their phones, and I don't mean like photographs of their dinner.
Yeah.
But we specifically went out and found 12 groups that we knew were underrepresented. So the Muslim community, migrant community, LGBT, women, rural communities, rural women. We are 70% a rural society, and we have a lot of women who live in, and it's a very conservative society, especially rurally. And so finding those people that weren't in there and saying, what have you got that would show us the story of you? And they give us that stuff. And then they were like, hang on a second, now we want to make more of this, and we would like to, do this properly. So that it's really constantly evolving. So now we're doing filmmaking projects and helping people to articulate their stories and preserving them and putting them in the archive. And I think what that does is not only encourages people to voice their stories, but then also puts their stories in an archive. So you're saying to them, look, your story is of equal value as this broadcaster's work.
Yeah.
You're in there and you're equal to them. So that legitimizes, democratizes, whatever you want to call it, the work that we do and the work that people want to give us, which is great.
That's amazing. And like you said, it's like those captured like moments in time as well, like just the day-to-day living or just what people are doing. It doesn't need to be like this massive film production.
No, because everything becomes beautiful in time. Like,
Yeah, it does.
honestly, Becca, if you went and watched the home movies, you would weep with the beautiful gentleness of them. And these are people who are just filming their family life for nobody else but themselves. But 50 years on, they're stunning, and they're just Oh, so I get so emotional just even thinking about them. They're so
Oh,
beautiful. So we need to have that. We need to keep having that. We need to keep adding to it. So 50 years from now, people can see the nonsense we were up to and think, oh, that's lovely, or it says something about them.
absolutely. Like it just remember like when I watch like a documentary like on like Netflix or something, but it's like seeing the home videos or seeing like
Oh,
I really love it because it really captures like what was going on in that moment, how their life looked, and yeah, so I can imagine that's what I've got going in my head is like all that kind of
oh,
like
they're
little
beautiful.
moments.
They're
Oh,
beautiful. I'll send you some of them, and you can have a look and share them out. But yeah, so basically, what we find is there were lots of people who weren't there, or if they were there, they were there in horribly offensive ways, and we can talk about that specifically to women. Um, and then it was a matter of going back to groups and saying, right, we know we're not doing a good job here. Help us do better.
yeah.
So and the response has been brilliant, really, really good.
That's amazing. So like you mentioned like women are like unrepresented in the archive itself. So what does the that absence actually look like and what does it mean for how I guess we understand our own history with that?
Yeah, I mean, and it's like we were saying earlier, like, identify the gatekeepers
Yeah.
and then find ways to get around them. And, like nothing, everything we look at, and you're kind of looking at old stuff and you think, oh my God, this is dated horribly. How could they say that about these people? So you see very obvious things like that, especially in the 60s stuff. I think like if there wasn't like a woman draped across something, you couldn't sell it. So we had like the furniture queen and the bicycle princess, and there were dairy queens who were selling like milk as like a dieting tool, and all of these kind of things. And that was what sold, and that was what people wanted to see. And I mean, that's continued. That's still a
It
thing,
is, yeah, definitely.
and one of the things, and we can talk about it more in depth. But one of the films, when we do the program specifically with women who aren't represented, we have a film of women who are on a milk diet, and in the 60s, and then they are put on scales and weighed in a hotel room by men.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Oh no, we're
that's
getting like
that's the usual reaction. That's the
yeah.
usual reaction.
I'm gonna have to write this down. I'm like,
Yeah.
right, milk diet. I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to look
yes.
it
So,
up.
so they're on the scales, and they're three women. That you see them eating pasta, which is quite exotic for the 60s, drinking milk with their dinner, and then standing on scales and getting weighed. But the thing is, they get money for it at the end. And I
Yeah.
always say to the women, what is the difference? You're gasping at this,
Yeah.
but what is the difference between an influencer selling a product and getting paid for it, and
Mhm.
these women selling milk as a dieting tool and getting paid for it? Like don't be
True.
gasping and do gasp and shock, because it is
Yeah.
awful. But also, what we need to ask ourselves is what has changed. So
This
the
is
archives, old films are great for that, because it's very easy to think, oh, that's done and dusted. We don't do that kind of thing anymore, but we generally do,
yeah,
just in
you're
different
right.
ways.
It's evolved,
It's
basically.
evolved. Yeah.
Yeah, like with many things, and that's why I like to call out the history of diet culture, but also look at like what's going on right now. And I do call out like all the bullshit supplements that are out there at the moment that the influencers try to sell because I'm like, you don't need it, and this is just diet culture dressed up. But
Yeah.
it's the same
Yeah.
thing. But like I totally agree. It's all these things always evolve. And like, yeah, we're shocked like by it, but there's always something. There's always something else that's out there around this kind of stuff.
Just
Like,
because it's more subtle doesn't mean it's not the same thing.
I totally agree with that. Totally
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's really interesting. I'm going to just write that down. I was like, right, I'm going to check out this milk diet now and see what was going on in the 60s around this.
Honestly, plus the fact, like, people people forget that in the 60s, a lot of people were undernourished and
Yeah.
not eating properly. They were working manual or really difficult jobs, and a lot of the women were poured into those corsets and
Yeah.
24-hour girdles, which your granny probably had a 24-hour girdle, so it was all fake. It was all fake then, and as I said, what's changed? So
Yeah, absolutely. We've still got the issues of that, and beauty standards being a trend, or our body shape being a trend, and like that's been like well way back even before the 60s. To be honest, there's a lot of that the
oh, certainly, yeah, just because, yeah, we only have it to the 60s maybe, but doesn't mean
yeah.
it wasn't there before. Totally.
Absolutely. No, that sounds fascinating. And like you said, it's really great to be able to understand where these things are coming from because like a lot of people as well go like, oh, well, this is a quite a new thing. Like I get that as well with diet culture and stuff. I'm like, no, actually, it's way back. Or I get a lot of people saying, oh, who started the trends though? And I'm like, well, actually, it depends how you look at it because it's not one person, it's a corporation, and then but who was in charge of those corporations at that point? It's mainly men. So it's all very, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of nuance, but that's why I like diving into the history of it and understanding it more and more. So that's why, it's great to learn a bit more
Yeah,
around it as well.
yeah, it teaches us a lot.
It does. It does. And like I find new stuff every day and I love it when someone goes, oh, have you seen this? Or like, do you know, like, I actually just had a comment about red lipstick during the World War Two and what that represented. And apparently it was like a rebellion because they weren't allowed to like something to put. I just looked it up, so like I'm gonna have to do a bit more research. But it's something to do with like they weren't allowed to wear certain cosmetics and stuff, so it was a bit of rebellion against that. And I'm like, oh, this sounds up my
I
street.
love that.
I wear red lipstick when I go out, and
I
someone
love
in my
that.
comments did go like, "And you're wearing the red lipstick, so that means a lot." So now I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is a thing that now I've got to go back and look at because it's so interesting."
I love that. I
Yeah,
love that. That's great. Oh God,
I,
this
I
woman.
love, yeah, I love it when people
Amazing.
just, yeah, that's why I love like how when people tell me about these things or like the comments I get, I love going and looking at them and seeing actually where this come from, and I'm like, "Oh, that's so exciting!" I get excited about it.
Yeah, sadly, I hear you. I hear you.
I'm a bit of a history geek when it comes
And
to
it's good. That's
it.
good.
I think it's important. Um, but where did I get to? Yes. So I know we mentioned about like women being underrepresented, and I guess when it comes to like the film as well, it gets like need to look at it as a more holistic approach, like looking at like who gets to be recorded, who holds the camera, whose versions of events actually survives as well, and how conscious people were with that power dynamic historically. Like, what do you think
Yeah,
with that
yeah. I
side?
mean, I think that's, people underestimate the power of an editor. Like often people will see themselves in something and think that's not what I said. We see that all the time.
Yeah.
I've been misquoted. That's not what I said. That's out of context. Like the power of an editor cannot be underestimated. And also, yeah, as you said, I mean, who physically holds the camera? Like, until the 60s, cameras were only something that rich people could buy. So therefore, we're only seeing it through that, literally through that lens. And, it wasn't until like the little 8 millimeter home movie cameras that you
Yeah.
see kind of gave that to the power, gave that to people that they could do it themselves. And still in all, that was still something because I think it was looked upon as kind of a male hobby. So we do have some amazing female filmmakers from the 60s. I would love to find out that there are more. And that's just the way it was. So the power lies in who's telling the story and how they want that story to be seen and who is holding the camera. And that is why what's so great nowadays is, like I know people give off in smartphones and everything like that, but you've got a studio in your phone,
Yeah.
it's accessible, you can do it free, you can, and I know the downside of that. I know like, how out of hand that can get, but it does mean that we've all got the power to tell our stories more than we ever had in the past. And that is just amazing if we help people to do that right.
Yeah. Obviously, like I said, there's some nuance around that as well. Like there
Oh,
always is,
yeah,
always is. But it is exciting that we can like share more than anything
yeah.
before, as well. Um, I know because I know when we were talking, you mentioned about a program looking at the women have been represented politically in media coverage from the 60s onwards, and that it shocks people. What are the reactions you see when women watch that back?
Yeah, so when we do this program, I do it in partnership with an amazing group called the Northern Ireland Rural Women's Network. They're
Yeah.
incredible. And we're targeting specifically women in rural communities because, as I said before, they tend to be slightly more conservative communities.
Yeah.
And it's very important that you just don't charge in with like words like feminism and liberation, everything. Like these women will not want that, you know. You've got to respect your audience and bring the message to them. Walk in the fine line between patronizing and being honest.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we've run this program for the last couple of years, 3 or 4 years now. It's a 3-parter, and the first one is kind of just looking at things like the milk diet and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and things that are very obvious. And then the next one will be looking at women who get involved politically with a small p. So, doing groundwork. Especially here, you'll find during the Troubles, it was the mothers of young people who'd been murdered who became like the spokespeople for these movements. So they were not, and they didn't want to be politicians, but they were doing amazing work. And those activists are always, I mean, I'm sure you've worked and met loads of activists. They're incredible people.
Yeah.
And then the last one will be more looking at women actually in politics and what has changed. Like we didn't have, until the 90s, there were no women MPs from Northern Ireland. There's all kinds of just shocking stuff about how, the very common thing is, and I think you probably still get that in a lot of communities, not just with us, is like, oh, the women, they make the tea. What do the women do with the politics? They make the tea, and you'll find women saying that about themselves. So it is a gentle path into discussing these things, and challenging that intern. And I don't want to say misogyny is very strong. This isn't like but challenging that inner narrative that tells them, well, this is just what we've always done and this is how it should always be, and just saying, is that right, and is that really what you see around you? Think of the women who are doing amazing things. So it is bringing people along this path towards, if you want to get more involved, we can point you those directions. If you do actually want to get involved in politics, and they bring the women to Stormont, which is the Parliament of Northern Ireland, to meet women MLAs, members of the Assembly, or women MPs, and that's great. I mean, they're not all great, because just because you're women doesn't necessarily mean that you are a supporter of women.
Yes.
But that's okay too, because that's all discussion. So it's really, like there's funny things. It's not heavy-handed. We don't, we just question, and we show it. We show the clips. Some of them are quite short, and we just say, what did you think there? And get conversations going, because it is just about conversations. I'll tell you one clip that's really amazing, is that there are 2 women. In 1977, 2 women from Northern Ireland won the Nobel Peace Prize. Not a lot of people know that. They were in a group called the Peace People, coming at the result of the worst kind of violence that we'd seen, the peak of violence in the Troubles. They went to Oslo to get their prize, Betty Williams and Mairead Corrigan. Ulster Television made a programme about them. These are women in their late 30s, early 40s. They called them girls throughout the entire programme. This isn't bad now for 2 wee girls from West Belfast. These are women.
Yeah.
And that gets people really, really riled. It is all about the language that you use. We discuss that. We discuss the subtleties of it. What's not being said. And so things like the milk diet, things like the Nobel Peace Prize winners being called girls.
Yeah.
Things like that. They're shocking, but we try to do it and show some funny things, show some things that are just like, oh my God, this is cringe, because it's, you don't want to, you can't go into people with a hammer and just, be, here's the message and you must conform and now you must all go out and be activists,
Absolutely. You need to just give people and they can, like, people should always make their own decisions, and it's
Absolutely.
and that's why I'm a big believer in, like, it's my coaching style as well. Like, I question people. I'm not dictating to them what to do. I'm like,
No.
let's like explore this. Like, well, what do you feel about this? Or what, like, how is like this sitting with you? Or like, and that I feel can lead someone, to really follow their heart rather than
Stick otherwise, will it? It just won't
it will
stick.
never stick. No, of course not. You need to, and I love that you're doing that. Like, especially in those small communities as well. Like, I come from, it's not as conservative probably, but I come from a very small village in the middle of Exmoor. That's my upbringing. So it is very different. Like the way I dress, everyone's always like, "Are you sure you're from there?" So, like, I was never like, I never fitted in, so that way. So I
Yes.
understand, like when I go back, and I actually did a talk for my mum's friends. They asked me to do a talk on like health and diet culture, but the language I use is very different to what I talk about, like how I am online,
Yes.
because of that community, and it's just
Yes.
being a lot
Yes.
softer, exploring things in a different way.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
fair to to swan in and use things that people feel uncomfortable with, and that excludes them from conversations. It's not fair to people to do that. You'll get more if you have that. It's a very clearly a two-way conversation.
Yeah.
It has to be, And I think that's everything. Everything has to be as two ways you can possibly make it, and you won't always agree.
Mm.
But I work with great facilitators who, if there is something in the room that's, bringing up something that's unpopular or whatever like that, I have the women that I work with are amazing and will help facilitate that in such a way that the discussions can continue, and
Yeah.
women are good at that anyway.
Yeah.
But just, and if there's someone quiet in the room, the worst thing you could do is point at them and say, well, you've been very quiet. What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't have to be that either. It can be just a quiet word, or this is, and because the archive is accessible and completely online, they can go off by themselves, and then they'll come back in the next week and go, do you know what else I found? Oh my God, I found this. I'm so annoyed.
And that's the best way as well. It's like, I think when people can explore it for themselves out of like the light, like the fire, not what I would say, like the limelight. When you're like questioning
Yeah.
someone, if like that's why I think the videos and stuff are so great, and like
Yeah.
so people can go and sit with it on their own and make their own decisions about how they perceive it, because everyone's going to perceive things differently as well, or
Yeah.
take things differently from videos, which is, I love that. It's and I love the work that you guys are doing, and like going into the community, and like I also think meeting someone from a non-judgmental space, like you never know someone's background or what they've been exposed to or the environments they've grown up in, so you can't go in like you said, like this is what you should do, because it could be so alien to someone that you can't just go in.
And
Yeah.
also, I would say here, an extra layer of nuance, and actually, I'm going over to London to talk about this next week, is that even the most innocuous film, because we are a small community that has been through so much trauma, that you could inadvertently show something that could trigger a PTSD or traumatic reaction. So, you have to tread carefully, you have to read the room and be kind of aware and alert, and you're doing the same when you're in your group. You're kind of watching, you're doing your work, but you're also watching, and you can tell if the mood has changed or something. And I've had a few instances of showing completely innocent things that turned out to have horrendous backstories of violence, and troubles related violence, and you just don't know. So you've got to be respectful. You're not swanning in there to tell them all what they're doing wrong and to show them a whole load of stuff that will suddenly change their minds. So you've been constantly reading the room, and I have such huge admiration, as I've said, for people who facilitate and work in this, in anything like this as a job. I just think they're amazing, and I love working with them. I love working with people who get it and who want to use the films in the right way and see the value of them. That's great.
That's amazing. They sound like, oh, I'm just like, makes me go like, 'cause these people, I've got a lot of love and respect.
Oh,
So,
aren't they great?
yeah,
Honestly. And and doing things with and not clamoring for the recognition of it. Not It's not all about photo ops and swanning in and then, swanning out again. So yeah, it's great. They should be applauded as much
they,
as they
yeah.
want to be applauded.
Well, I'm celebrating them right now. But like,
Yeah.
like, just
Yeah,
like
let's do that.
hopefully, like even this podcast and talking about it brings that awareness, and if that does some
Oh,
like good, and I hope so.
I hope
Honestly,
so.
just
I hope
hearing
so.
that, just yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, bless. So thank you for sharing that, Bruna. But I wanted to obviously, because my obviously talk about diet culture a lot, so I wanted like connect this in with the diet culture world. So I talk a lot about self-objectification. So that's women learning to see themselves through other people's eyes. Like, does that show up in archive footage at all? Like, or like, is there ways that like it's hard to watch when you see that kind of stuff come up?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, as I said, sometimes you're looking at things and you just think, God, this is horrendous. And as I said before, like a lot of the um, how things were like women being used to sell things in the past, like so common, you know. I hope I haven't frozen, have I?
It's all right, don't worry.
Okay,
That just sounds fine.
okay, all right. I don't know what's going on there, but anyway, it's raining here.
Oh, is it?
We're very rural, and that affects the Wi-Fi.
Like, I grew up in Exmoor, I know. As soon as it
We
rains,
know,
everything
we
starts to
know.
break.
We know. So yeah, I think there's a lot. There's a lot that we can use the films, as uncomfortable as they are, to challenge, to say, look at this. What do you think of this? And it isn't to go in and go, oh my goodness, isn't this awful? But it is to say, look, what do you think of this? And we do that. We do a lot of work with young people as well. They obviously think that we all grew up in a black and white world. They're amazed when we found out we had phones and electricity and televisions and all kinds of things. But and it's really interesting to hold up these examples to them and ask them to tell us what's different about what they're saying now, as we said earlier. So yeah, that's and the diet culture and fashion and everything and the evolution. It's great, really great to look at the evolution of fashion actually through the archives. Because as you said, like I love red lipstick being a weapon almost, and I love we will explore people who did go around dressed completely differently and how shocking that was and everything like that. And like nobody's kind of fazed by that. Everybody wears different things nowadays. It's probably not as shocking as it was, but it's great to show people, being interviewed and go, what do you think if she's wearing? And they'll go, oh no, that's awful. And there's a really great one actually of mini skirts.
Oh, yeah.
People being asked if the mini skirts are too short. Now the mini skirts are just above the knee. You're not seeing, and they'll all be like, oh no, they're far too short, and oh no, oh that's terrible, and one woman's like, oh, I think women shouldn't be showing off our knee. We all have terrible knees. What are we doing showing off our knees like that? And obviously a few men are all for it. But it's a really interesting discussion, and it's kind of funny, and you're kind of laughing at them because the mini skirts are so innocuous and they're so long and whatever. But there is that idea of like, it's mainly the women who are kind of against them, and that's a really interesting debate to have. And sidebar to that, we also have one where people are asked if there should be women ministers, like Christian ministers.
Yeah.
Men all for it, women totally against it.
That's so
Absolutely,
interesting.
absolutely right down the line. That all the women they interview are like, no, women can't do that. Women are too hysterical. You need a man to be in charge, blah, blah, blah. And the men are all like, oh no, I think it's a good thing. A woman brings something new. And this is the 60s. It
This is,
completely turns on its head what you think people in the 60s would be like.
yeah, that's
You
really
know?
interesting.
Yeah,
Then
really interesting.
is it because that's what the women believe, that they believe they can't do it and women shouldn't do it? Is that the internal narrative that they've
Yeah,
digested, or is it
yeah.
because they truly believe that? This is why I love getting the questions. I'm like, what was it going on at that time? Why did they believe this?
What was
Um,
going on? And honestly, what's the difference now? Like female politicians, if you're going to talk about politicians or anybody in the limelight. And we spoke earlier about CMAT, which I urge you to go and see. CMAT performed at
yeah,
the Radio 1 weekend a few weeks ago. She's an amazing woman. She's an amazing singer. She's a very powerful message. BBC Radio 1 had to turn the comments off their Instagram for her because the abuse was so intense because
wow.
she's not, what they want a female singer to be. Um, she dresses amazingly, I think, but and they had to actually turn off the comments on just her reel, nobody else's, just hers, because the abuse was so bad. And so again, the archives make us question what has really changed. You know,
Yeah, yeah, that's like blown my mind. I'm gonna be like diving into those archives online to find some footage like this week,
yeah,
definitely.
so there we go.
But yeah, it's very interesting. Like, and like I actually talk about fashion quite a lot because I actually studied fashion, and that was my career before becoming a
Amazing.
coach. So the history of fashion and how that actually highlights what's actually going on in the world, like politically. I don't think people realise actually how political fashion is, of what's going on. So it's yeah, that's why I always love. That's why I did the post about the aprons on the catwalk. So that's like, which blew my mind, and that was again from someone like commenting, "Oh, have you seen the aprons?" And I was like, "What?" So like,
Oh,
and then I was like, "Oh yes," the internal rage came out.
I think, I mean, I would be angry about that at the best of times, but for me and for us here, that was coming on the back of those riots, and it was coming on the
Mm.
back of another conviction for femicide that nobody rioted about. And I, you know what, I was ready for a fight when I saw those aprons, I swear, you know.
Like, bring it on. I know, and then it's just yeah. It obviously I talked a lot about that. Don't need to go completely
Yeah,
into it,
it was great. It
but
was really great.
it's just highlighting again, like we need to think about the bigger picture, and it does reflect what what we're trying to like guess what's going on in society, what is happening, and like and that's why those archives are so important as well. Like I said, the mini skirts and stuff like that. So good old Mary Quant with
Oh, good old Mary Quant. But the thing is, Becky, and you know this as well, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And actually, the very blatant things, that's okay. But once you start to see the subtle ways that this is being done to us, you
yeah,
can't unsee that. And that's, and I think and I have to say here, and I'm sure you talk about this a lot in your work as well, is that it's very important to exercise self-care with these things, and to know when to turn off, and to look after yourself. And I mean, I put up stuff about the femicide in Northern Ireland, and I just literally I wanted to go in and I wanted to argue with everybody who had come on to abuse it, and instead I just deleted all their comments, because I
yeah.
refuse. I just, engaging, I understand it, but we need to look after ourselves,
Yeah, I get that. Like the other week, actually, I got really overwhelmed because I was getting like, I get it on Facebook and Instagram, and sometimes I just get it, oh, it's too much. And I'm like, but especially when people, and it's usually, well, no, it's men and women, they were coming in and attack my
Yeah.
appearance rather than actually, like, I'm like, you don't have to agree with what I'm saying, but don't come and attack my appearance because you can't actually have a conversation
No,
about.
no. I mean, it's so easy to do that, and it actually means nothing. And
Yeah,
and you can't say, well, they're the ones making themselves look silly, but that's not to say that it doesn't chip at you a little
yeah.
bit. So I just
So
delete them. I just delete them. You
it
know.
does when you're getting like quite a few a day. You're just like,
Oh yeah, I
if
can't
you're feeling a
imagine.
bit wobbly anyway, like if you're having a bit of a
Oh,
wobbly day, then you're like,
oh, I'm
nah, I can't
sorry.
do it today. No, it's all right. I'm all right. Luckily, I've got a good support system around me, and
Good.
like, and I
That's
just
that's
turn it off now. I'm like, right, enough Instagram for
yeah,
today, and just like, or I just stop replying to comments and just focus on obviously all my wonderful clients or the
yeah,
love messages that I get. I just focus on those instead.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I just sometimes have to turn it off. But
yeah. We
sometimes
have to look
I,
after ourselves.
I think for the last week I haven't really looked at comments because it just got a bit much for me. So,
Yeah, it's been rough. It's been
yeah.
rough. No doubt about it.
But but then I think, well, I'm obviously making waves and standing up about stuff that I believe in, and no matter how much they try to shut me down, just going to make me speak up louder, because it's needed. So
Absolutely.
that's my
Absolutely.
attitude.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. It
But
just,
I
yeah.
think,
And I think, I have to say, and you're much younger than I am, but, and I've had discussions with women of my age like that, and, this thing about, oh, you become invisible. I actually embrace the invisibility because it means you don't actually have to give a shit anymore, and,
I was going to ask you about that as well because I know you said you give much less of a shit
oh,
now about what people think. When did that shift happen? Like, was there a moment that like was it an age or was it just like
well,
that's
I mean,
it?
I couldn't pinpoint it. I just there was just this realization. I mean, I think you had to be really comfortable in your body, and we're told that aging is like the worst possible thing that can happen to you. Oh my God, it's just horrendous, and we must stop the aging by all means necessary, as you know. And I was just like, do you know what? I have just decided, I think it was being surrounded by strong women and working with women like the facilitators I work with and the other groups that I'm in and just my friends. And it's like, these scars and this, me, this, like, this is who I am. And I got this is what got me to here, and good on me, you know. So it is all about surrounding yourself with people who will lift you up. That is absolutely key. You know, in your work, in your friendships, in your home life, right? It is all about surrounding yourself with people who will lift you up, and then being prepared to lift others up as well. That's the key. And once you do that, and I think older women do that because we have lived, you know, and like, you know, our lives are not straight paths. You know, when you're young, you're 20, you think that if you go slightly off the path, everything's over. Oh my God, I did a prize giving at my old school, which was a Catholic convent school. And I did it all about the quirky path and, you know, going and, you know, to being afraid. And then I heard 3 girls quit their university courses that they were going to go because of it. And their parents were really annoyed. And I was like, no, screw them, you know, they're good for them. Screw the parents, you know.
Yeah.
I count that as a win. So
Oh no,
um,
definitely.
because you think when you're young that if you have any kind of deviation from the plan that you think you've got, that it's the end of the world. And when you get to 60, as I have, you're just like, you know what, I have survived. I will keep surviving. I know more than I ever knew before. And I pick and choose my battles, and I pick and choose my friends.
I love
It's
that.
great, you
You've
know.
got to. But you're right. I think we're like, again, with that societal norms, we're drummed into us very young. Like, if you have to follow the societal norms, the societal path, and like if you go against the grain, then yeah, you're made to feel like. And I'm again someone that I didn't want to follow. Like, I didn't necessarily want to get married. I don't want to have kids, and I had to have. And I'm 42, so I was still having to go back home, and people were like, oh, you're still single. Oh, and you're gonna have children.
A little
Like,
head tilt.
a little help to, yeah, and it used to drive me insane because I'm like, why didn't they ask me about my career? Why didn't they ask me about like anything else that's going on? Apart, like I've travelled, I've done stuff, like,
I know.
and it was never about that. It was always about getting married, having
Yeah,
kids.
yeah. People can't. People have certain. People just can't fathom it. They just can't
Yeah,
fathom it. But you know what? Wear that. Absolutely. I mean, I love you for that because you wear it. You're not going to damp yourself down in any way, and you know, just let them have their thoughts. Let them have that. It
yeah,
doesn't affect you. Doesn't mean anything to you. You're not going to go out and just, you know, cover yourself in a lovely uh, all one flowery pattern dress with a nice high neck just because they want you to. So, you know.
yeah, exactly that. But yeah, I'm the same. Like, I think what you said about like getting the confidence and feeling good in yourself, like, and then you don't give a shit anymore. I feel that's exactly what I got to, because I used to be incredibly shy, like low self. Yeah, I used to walk around with like couldn't look at people in the eye when I was
Oh,
younger. No one ever believes me. They're like, no way. But if like when I went back home and did my talk to my mum's friends, they were like, I cannot believe like you were this little girl that wouldn't talk to anyone, and now you're like, you know how you are. And they were like so proud, and I was like, oh.
amazing. And what changed for you? Where was there a moment?
I don't think it was one moment. I
No.
think it was the constantly working on myself,
Yeah.
and I constantly put myself out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
That I didn't want to stay in this village, and yeah,
No.
like wanted to go off and do fashion, and I wanted to go and get career. So each time I stepped out of my comfort zone, that confidence grew a bit more,
Yeah.
until it got like to the point now I'm probably the most comfortable with myself I've ever been,
I love
and
that.
that's why I think my voice has got louder about the things that I believe in,
I love that.
and
Yeah.
not being a system. And that's why I do the work that I do. Like, I want to empower women to do the same. Um, and that's breaking free from diet culture, and like, which is obviously my speciality. But it's because it's so free. You feel it. You're so free when you get to this point, and you're just like, I know who I am. I speak out about the things I believe in, and I always say I feel like I'm now the voice that I never had, and I'll be the voice for the women that are still trying to find theirs,
That's
because
amazing. That's
tough.
amazing,
Oh,
Becky. Flat
thank
out.
you.
No, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And and for everybody who's afraid of it, it doesn't have to be big dramatic changes. Baby steps and kindness to yourself. That's key.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
I had one last question, Brendan, which
Okay.
I think this one would be a great one. Like, what do you want younger women to know that probably took you decades to figure out?
Oh my God. Um, it's not a straight path. It's
Mm.
not a straight path. Like, embrace that, accept that. you will fall on your arse, and you just need to get back up. You need to get back up, because, you know, the alternative is to just sit in paralysis and do nothing with your life. And we are so fortunate, like for all the circumstances that we have here around us here, and everything is happening in the world, we are still in a place, many of us are still in a place of great privilege. You know, so just keep going, keep going and find great friends.
Ah, I absolutely love that. That's a great way to end this episode. Thank you so much, Brónagh. This has been an incredible conversation, which I knew it would be. If anyone wants to know a bit more about like the archives, like is there any links that they can head to?
Yeah, so everything that I have talked about here and all the programming, different things that we do everything's online. So that is digitalfilmarchive.net. And if you just put Digital Film Archive into your browser, we'd probably be one of the first things that comes up. And they're all Northern Ireland related, but that's not to say that they're not universal themes, okay? And there's lots of talks and lots of kinds of things in there that we've done. And also keep an eye out for that, because sometimes I do like online screenings, because not everybody can get to physical places. And we'll do online sessions as well. And actually, if you ever want to do that, Becky, let me know, because we could do some film sharing online and have a bit of fun with it as well. Maybe look at diet and fashion specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where you go. That's where you go.
That's amazing. I'll drop the link below this show notes as well. But for everyone listening, thank you so much. Obviously, if you've got any questions about anything, I'm always here to answer them. And have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.